Welcome travelers to another RPG adventure. Today, we'll be discussing the best classes and characters for PvE and PvP in Tarisland. So, are you ready to dive into a new universe? I am Lord Purple. This is RPG World. Let's get started.
Cadena Hits.
First of all, it's important to make it clear that all classes and races in Tarisland work perfectly well for both PvE and PvP. However, some of them adapt better to certain types of gameplay, making them more suitable for one or the other. Obviously, this is a subjective list and you may or may not agree with me, but I have defined the characters in the following way, taking into account aspects like class, character complexity, and their skill kits. By the way, we won't have a D tier on this list because I don't consider any character to be completely bad for any utility. That is to say, there are no bad races in the game, just more useful ones.
Let's go!
For the list of the best PvE characters, we'll start by talking about the Barbarian, one of the favorite races for most players, and in reality, a very balanced character. Its two skill kits are well suited for both PvE and PvP, although of the two, I must highlight its tank specialization, as it not only withstands quite well, but also has crowd control abilities that improve its sustainability in battle. I don't rank it higher on this list because the other two tanks in the game surpass it significantly, and in the case of the DPS version, it is also outperformed by other races. Even so, for PvE, a DPS Barbarian is also viable, especially if you know how to position yourself properly and dodge enemy abilities, so it will depend on your skills to get the most out of a character with these features. Now let's talk about the Warrior, a favorite among beginners and for good reason. The Warrior is easy to position, easy to use, and has a skill kit that allows it to keep enemies at bay, and also deals a decent amount of damage. Its best version for PvE is its tank specialization. It could be said that it is the most complete race in the game, and besides withstanding damage quite well, it can also provide shields to its team. The Warrior is the logical choice for any novice who wants to familiarize themselves with the game without delving into technicalities and complexities. That's why it is one of the characters that make up the holy trinity of Tarisland, and that's why we give it S+. The Necromancer is a pretty good race in the game, one of the three healers in Tarisland, but the most difficult to master of the three. I would recommend playing this character to more experienced players, not just within the genre, but in general in other games like MOBAs, since you will rely on several skill shots when casting your powers. Directly, the Necromancer could be an A, but the previous reason makes me lower it a notch on this list. In any case, this does not mean it is a bad character, but it would be better to use it once you master one of the other two healers. On the other hand, we have the Paladin, the true tank of the game, as no other character can withstand, regenerate, and create shields like this one. The only reason it isn't an S+ is because its learning curve is a bit higher than the Warrior's, and its positioning must be correct to absorb as much enemy damage as possible and allow the DPS of its team to do their job. A good tank can make the difference between an effective raid and returning to the lobby empty-handed. The main difference between the Warrior and the Paladin, apart from their obvious skill kits, is the itemization, as the Paladin might require a double build to be a good tank that withstands and also take advantage of its critical damage specialization. The Ranger is, for me, the most broken class in the game, and that's speaking in general terms. For PvE, the Beast Tamer specialization not only allows you to have an extra pet in the game, but besides all the DPS you can deal, you also have a skill kit that includes crowd control and area damage. With good positioning, the Ranger will be able to dominate in raids, and it's always good to have her in your team, although you will have to ensure her health doesn't drop too much. The damage she deals more than makes up for it. She is not very complicated to master, although she has a couple of skill shots that might be hard to hit if you are new, but her range is sufficient to allow you to miss without regrets.
Rumors of the magic power of music have been around for a long time, before the elven bards were first known to humans. Their musical magic works in a more mysterious way than that of ordinary magic. They can create sonic booms with their music to attack enemies with powerful impact. They can also heal allies to give their team the confidence to achieve victory.
Undoubtedly, one of the best supports in the game, if not the best, is the Bard. Again, it doesn't reach an S+, simply due to its learning curve and because, to be an effective healer, you'll need to learn to position and cast correctly with this character. Otherwise, he is an exceptional buffer, capable of increasing the damage, speed, and resistance of the team, and if that weren't enough, his cooldowns are quite short. A good Bard will always be sought after by those wanting to do effective raids, and they are often highly prized. To complete the holy trinity of PvE, we have the Priestess, the quintessential healer. As you wouldn't believe what a ranger, a warrior, and a priestess together can achieve. She is one of the most basic and easy-to-play classes, highly recommended for very casual players or those just beginning their RPG journey, among other things, because she can heal a lot and keep her allies alive. She doesn't require much concentration, and basically, you will be pressing the same button over and over to cast your healing spell. Although this doesn't mean it stops being fun, as the Priestess is one of the most sought-after and requested races for the PvE environment. Almost finishing, we have the Mage, one of the best classes for PvE, because in its Flame Mage specialty, it deals area damage that allows it to attack multiple enemies at once. Plus, its range helps it farm enemies very effectively. Although it doesn't have much health or armor, it doesn't lack when facing multiple enemies alone. In fact, this could be the character I recommend playing if you don't have a team to support you or love being antisocial. Perhaps the only issue with this class is that it feels somewhat nerfed and its power doesn't shine as it should. Finally, we have what, in my experience, is the worst class for PvE, and not because it can't do it, because in the hands of experts, the Shadow Swordsman is a lethal weapon that takes down bosses. The thing is, at lower levels, it is not very easy to use a character with little health that needs to get too close to enemies to deal a good amount of damage. And if you're not used to this type of character, life will be impossible, and you might even end up uninstalling the game. That happened to a friend's cousin. On the contrary, the Shadow Swordsman is an excellent choice for PvP. The damage it can deal is often enough to take down a ranger or a priestess, and although it doesn't have much health, it makes up for it with its speed. The only reason it isn't an S+ is because that spot is already reserved for another character. The Necromancer is also much more effective for PvP, where it stands out for its area damage and healing, allowing it to harm its enemies long before they get close and simultaneously provide good sustain to its allies. Again, the only thing that doesn't make it as effective is its difficulty level, but once mastered, it will be easy for you to carry your team. As I mentioned earlier, the Barbarian is quite well balanced, which may not be entirely beneficial. Its Ice specialization allows it to withstand very well in PvE, but not enough to surpass the Paladin, and its Thunder specialization makes it a formidable DPS for both PvE and PvP. Still, not enough to surpass the Shadow Swordsman. Even with all this, and thanks to its peculiar trait depending on its specialization, to withstand more or deal more damage as its health decreases, a Barbarian who knows how to push this trait to the limit will be highly valued in battles. Speaking of good damage, the Mage slightly surpasses the Barbarian, mainly due to its ranged attack. Otherwise, its Frost specialization is the most effective for PvP, thanks to its direct damage, which is quite high. But like Paper, if not adequately protected, the Mage will be destroyed by enemies as soon as they reach it. In both its critical damage and tank specializations, the Paladin is not the best option for PvP. Many believe that entering the arena with a powerful tank that can withstand hits will help their team achieve victory, and that would be true if the opponents had brains the size of a peanut. But as soon as they see you and your healer, who do you think they will focus on? You might withstand a lot, but in the end, you will end up betraying your team when the enemies pass you by and decide to ignore you. Another great contender for PvP is the Bard, due to its skill kit with its soloist specialization. Not only can it buff itself with more damage, but it can also heal itself, and, if that weren't enough, it has a good ranged attack. The only thing it doesn't excel in is sustained damage, which isn't the best in the game. Even so, we can't overlook that the Bard is very overpowered. A similar case to the Paladin is the Warrior, with the only difference that its skill kit and its Wrath specialization is much more versatile and useful in PvP, though this only raises it one notch, as you will be sacrificing your tanking abilities to gain damage. The thing is, for this, you will need to get close enough to your enemies and you aren't exactly fast. Let's go with the last two. Starting with the class I consider the most broken in the game. The Ranger in its Hunter specialization has unmatched sustained damage, plus its ranged attack is quite large, making it difficult even for an expert Shadow Swordsman to reach you before you eliminate them, of course if you don't miss your skill shots. Anyway, for me, the Ranger is incredibly overpowered, and for that reason alone, it deserves to be at the top of this list.
Bursting. I'm stunned again. It's okay, the rogue is not here. He's panicking. Nice.
And I almost forgot about the Priestess, but not because she isn't good, but the reality is that it's rare for someone to use her for PvP, and even rarer for it to be with her damage kit. Honestly, I have my reservations about it, but we will leave her in the last spot because we really don't know if she is a class capable of surprising us. To wrap up, let's move on to the million-dollar question. Which character should you play? Frankly, the only answer I can think of is to play the one you like the most. For example, I don't like being the support of the team very much, but I love the Bard and consider his playstyle entertaining enough, so I decided that he would be one of my two main characters, the other being the Paladin. Ironic, right? Although if you came looking for a recommendation, I'll give you one. If you are someone who plays solo, the Mage or Ranger are options that can get you out of a tight spot without needing help. Now, if you come with friends, it will be better to take on specific roles to cover the team's needs. That is, if there is already a tank and a healer, the best is to choose a damage class. Or conversely, if they already have enough DPS and a tank, you'll need to be a healer. Of course, the final decision is yours. Thank you for making it this far. Remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay updated with the next content I upload to this channel. We will be posting more guides on Tarisland and much more. This is Lord Purple. See you soon, folks.